Welcome to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast, where we talk all things Panther City Lacrosse Club. Now here are your hosts, Nicholas and Andy.
Well, Panther City was ready for their homecoming game as they took on the struggling Vancouver Warriors. Welcome everyone to the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I'm Nicholas, joined by Andy.
Hello, hello.
And the Warriors, as we mentioned last week, came into this game kind of missing an identity. In fact, they had a lead in the previous games before and kind of blew it away pretty easily in one of the games for sure. So they were looking to come back in this game and honestly just kind of grab onto anything that had some kind of sturdiness. And of course, Panther City was just, they were glad to be home. It was our first home game since December 17th. So it was good to have a home game for once.
Yeah, I can't believe that. That 2-month span is just, but hey, that's kind of what happens in Texas when you got the rodeo in town.
I mean, yeah, in Texas, the rodeo takes precedence over everything else. But yeah, so the game started out really good, I think. I mean, at least in our favor. So as we talked about last week, we have gotten into the trend, unfortunately, of getting down early in these games and having to work our way back into them. Well, that wasn't the case this time. Pretty much within the first minute, nobody even had a chance to sit down, and Medeiros got a goal right off the bat, pretty much within that first minute. So it was good to see a positive start for Panther City.
Yeah, absolutely. You obviously don't want to start in a hole, and to get that kind of goal, not just any goal, but one in transition that really pumps up the crowd. I think less than 30 seconds had passed and we had gotten on the scoreboard, and we'll go into this a bit later, but we had a pretty good sized crowd this weekend, and so it's obviously great to score and do well early on to get the crowd going.
Oh, for sure. And there were some good things, especially to from the start of the game, from Panther City's side. I mean, overall in the first quarter, I mean, Daymud, I mean, he's still playing solid. I seriously think he's kind of one of the highlights of the year so far still for the defense. And then I kind of added this in. So during that first quarter, it was pretty slow going after that first goal. It kind of, slowed back down a little bit. But I don't know if you noticed this, especially during the replay, but Vancouver, it seemed like they tried the exact same play almost 3 times in a row. It was a play where they set up somebody to the left of the goalie, and he keeps the ball in one hand and then just kind of I don't know, lazily passes it to the right to a player to try to score. And he threw it over the player one play, and then the other two, they either dropped it or, got a shot blocked. But it was just, again, talking about a team who kind of doesn't know themselves right now. It just kind of felt weird.
Yeah, they're definitely still trying to find themselves, especially with the departure of Mitch Jones. He was such a big part of their offense. Granted, they showed this weekend that they still have a pretty high-powered offense. Early on, I think they just probably tried to bring things back to basics. Okay, well, maybe they thought, hey, let's get this going a few times. Hopefully by the third or fourth time, we'll get this play right. And eventually they did tie it up 1-1. Keegan Ball, he had a really good game for them, and he got things going.
Yeah, and maybe like you said, they were just trying to get some kind of consistency going, and okay, well, we can keep trying this play, and then if we can get some positives from it, then we can go off of that. But yeah, like you said, Vancouver tied it up, and then Panther City, again, showing that the start of the game for them was definitely different than their previous games. I mean, they kind of went on a little 3-0 run with scores by Dodds, Donville, and Crawford, which, speaking of Crawford, and we'll talk about him throughout the game, but yeah, he had a great transition goal at the end of the first, and it was beautifully set up, and it was almost just flawless to watch. It was a great transition goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing we already talked about Medeiros' goal to start the game. He assisted on Crawford's goal as well, so he's shown yeah, he's obviously a very good defender, but there's a lot of things he can do for an offense as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so that was really something good to take away from the first. Hey, our offense seems to be, doing very well. I mean, again, obviously with the home crowd there, getting them hyped up. and we ended the first up 4-1. So things were looking good. Unfortunately, the second quarter happened, and Vancouver, uh, as we've talked about in the past with Vancouver, they do have a good offense. And even though they are missing pieces right now and still trying to find what works and what doesn't, they still have a great offense. And they did put that on show in the second quarter, and they went on a 6-0 run. And it was just, it was kind of, shocking because you didn't really expect them to go on a 6-0 run out of nowhere in the second.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of funny. A little backstory this weekend. I was driving pretty far from Fort Worth to the game, and Nick let me know, "Hey, things are going good so far. We're up 4-1. It's a big difference from the past few games." I'm like, "Oh, okay, great. Wonder how big that lead will be when I get to the game." And then I arrive and it's 6-4, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what happened?"
Right. Yeah. It's like you showed up just in time to watch us, not do anything offensively. And,
Hmm.
it wasn't like we were playing bad. Um, I think, they just had Vancouver had some good offense, and
Yeah.
it's hard to keep a good offense down for so long. They eventually have to get something out of it. But yeah, that little 6-0 run kind of had me worried there for a second. And there was also a few power plays that happened in the second. I mean, even I think right after you got there is right when Fox had, kind of had a highlight of getting in a fight right off the bat.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, with those penalty minutes, they kind of capitalized on it and scored during that 6-0 run. But yeah, Fox's fight was kind of interesting because the other player didn't get a penalty for it. It was just Fox. So
Yeah, and it was kind of funny in the replay that they kind of hinted at the Vancouver player wanting no part of Jake Fox.
yeah. Oh, he knows. Yeah, he knows. He's like, no, I'm okay. I'll stay right here. You can take the penalty. But yeah, we finally kind of calmed things down again. The vet Crawford. I mean, we're going to talk about him this whole game, but he kind of calmed things down a little bit, and got 2 goals back. Medeiros got another goal, and I mean by that point I think we had tied it up, right? Or yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was it was
Going
a
into
it was a tie
halftime.
up after Medeiros' goal, and so even that goal, I think Medeiros' goal was kind of a cool highlight because he was, I think it was a transition, or was it a transition? I can't remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
but he
want to
was
say yes. Hmm.
but he was like running, and they passed it from the left hand side to the right, and he like jumped and scored it as he was going by the goal. So,
Yeah,
definitely some highlight plays, which definitely helped, like you said, the bigger crowd there, and it helped everybody get excited. Crawford in the first half definitely finding a solid ground in this offense.
yeah, yeah. He really shows that he can. He's been around a long time, but you can see why he's lasted in the league as long as he has. He's got a lot of junk in his game,
Yeah,
so to
yeah.
speak.
Well, and this is what I wrote in the notes. I mean, do you think that Coach TK is maybe putting some offensive schemes in there that are like not similar but familiar to Crawford to kind of help him with that transition
Oh,
from one
for
team to
that.
another?
Yeah, yeah, it's absolutely possible. Though I also think it's easy to play with great playmakers like Jonathan Donville and Patrick Dodds, Will Malcolm, and so Crawford's just kind of. I think he's just letting those guys do their things and seeing how best he can fit in. And in this case, he really helped stop the bleeding after that 7 goal run by Vancouver.
Yeah, for sure. And side note, I had even mentioned to you, like, you can always tell when Crawford's on the field. He kind of had a wrap on his leg, and I was just like kind of joking around. You can always tell when he's out there. That's old man legs.
It's funny. The first game we saw together last season, I remember. I think we were playing the Georgia Swarm, and there was another guy that seemed a bit more rickety. I
Hmm.
don't remember what his name was, but yeah, kind
Yeah,
of reminded me of that.
you could definitely tell he was the older person on the team for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, thankfully, kind of getting back settled down at the end of the second half, we tied it up 7-7. And as we've talked about before with Coach TK, he's really good at making those halftime adjustments. He's really good at making sure the team knows what to do what to work on and what to improve on going into the second half. And again, coming right out of halftime, Donville. I mean, the rookie just has no stopping him. He got a score right off the bat coming out of halftime, and it really kind of again set the tone early that we're not going to go down easy on this one. So a quick shot by him, but unfortunately, I think I don't remember a whole lot of penalties in this game. There were some. There, I mean, obviously, but I just don't remember it being like a big deciding factor. But it did decide the next two goals because the next two ones were off of power plays for Vancouver.
Yeah, something about I think Vancouver plays with a certain kind of physicality that probably frustrated both our offense and defense, and in this case with Patrick Foley and Brooker Muir both going out, it just Vancouver capitalized on those mental mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and it really again shows that Vancouver, as down as they are as a team, they're still able to put runs like that and put offensive power behind it. So, like you said, some struggles defensively from our side. We traded a few goals. Will Malcolm, you want to talk about an odd man out for this game? I mean, he was there, but I feel like he didn't make as much of a difference as he has in the past few games. But yeah, he finally got on the board, and then Medeiros and Dodds both got goals to finish the third. I don't know. The third period or the third quarter was just a lot of back and forth. I felt.
Yeah, I ultimately, aside from the two penalties, we did. I feel like we certainly played better than we did in the second, which is something that you do notice a lot with this team. Generally, if we have even if we have a bad game, even in our losses, by the second half after halftime, Coach TK and the guys will have righted the ship in some shape or fashion. So in this one, defense definitely improved. They didn't give up 7 goals again.
Mm-hmm.
Offense, the power play helped out that one time, but it definitely seemed more settled in. And then you brought it up. Josh Medeiros kind of did his thing in transition again, which really helped stop bleeding.
Yeah, and he's again another person kind of cementing himself as a good one of the top transition players. So it's good to see him getting that time in that position and helping the team out. But yeah, we ended the third up 11-10. Again, it was good to see us have a lead. I was kind of really hoping that the fourth quarter we could kind of put them away. We'll go over it, but we did to a point. I mean, our offense finally kind of settled down a little bit more, got more consistent looks at the goal. Malcolm got another goal, so it's good for him. I think they said during the broadcast his brother was out again. Tony was out, and then
Mm-hmm.
I forget who. There was somebody else who was out. Phil.
Yeah, there were 5 guys in all, and I think all of them are pretty regular contributors. You had Tyler Burton on defense, Phil Caputo, of course, on offense, Tony Malcolm in the transition game, Evan Messenger, so one of the key defensive guys, and then Dean Farrell in the offensive rotation as well. And so you could definitely feel their absence.
Well, yeah, and especially just throughout the game when it seemed like things weren't going our way, you could definitely tell that we were missing some pieces. But yeah, after that Malcolm goal, I mean Crawford, I mean he had probably one of the best nights of the year so far. Obviously the best night for him, but he just kind of went off after that. He got 2 goals, second of which, I mean, not a spoiler alert, but possibly a spoiler alert. Gosh dang, that was like play of the game, play of the year. I mean, it was almost like a playground play. I mean, Donville had the ball. He's kind of got. I don't think he got pushed over. He got tripped up or pushed or I forget what happened.
Yeah,
He lost.
basically to create enough of an angle to get the pass to Crawford. He basically had to dive
Yeah,
on the ground and kind of sling it to get it to Crawford that way. He was conveniently situated right in front of the goalie.
right. Well, and not only that, but like I think if I remember right, even the shot clock was down to like the last few seconds, and he flipped it up to him, and yeah, Crawford was right there in the goal, and bam! I mean, yeah, play definitely a cool cat play of the game for sure.
Hmm.
But yeah, that even then, like you felt like, hey, we were kind of pulling away a little bit more, and then Crawford had another goal that ended up getting reviewed and taken away, and it's at that point that we got to learn our first instance about a instead of a hat trick, a sock trick. I had just recently learned about this because I was listening to the Coast to Coast show that they have on YouTube for NLL, and there was a player that was talking about a sock trick, and it's 6 goals in a game, and Crawford almost had that. I was like, man, now I got to invest into some software for in the future. But yeah, unfortunately, his goal got reversed. It gave us a good cushion, but we'll talk about it here in a second. It didn't give us that good of a cushion. But what overall, real quick, what did you think about Crawford being in the offense in this first home game?
He did great. I mean, he was exactly what we needed with Farrell and Caputo, Malcolm, all those guys being out. He really provided kind of what we expected him to provide when they traded for him. A steady veteran hand when regardless of whether you're down by a big margin or trying to hang on to a lead. He seemed to provide exactly what the offense needed each time.
I mean, you could tell he was definitely playing to put on a show. I mean, they don't call him Showtime for nothing.
Yeah,
So
you can definitely tell why that's his nickname.
right. So yeah, we had a little bit of a cushion. I believe at that point we were up 15-12. And then Vancouver did the thing that we talked about last week, where they pulled their goalie at 2:30. And you had mentioned that that far out might not be the best idea, but only if you're kind of grasping for straws. And at this point, Vancouver was grasping for straws,
Hmm.
um, but it worked. And at that point, it made me slightly worried that it was working too well. With 2:30 left, they pulled their goalie. They got a goal, and then not like 30 seconds later, they got another goal,
Yes.
making it 15-14 with a minute left. I, I I think that was the first time I've seen it work that efficiently.
Yeah, I mean you already have like a pretty good offense in Vancouver, and then add one more player to the mix. I was honestly really hoping that somehow Nick Damian would get another like empty netter on him somehow. It wasn't meant to be, but yeah,
A goalie goal would have been great.
mhm.
Yeah, that it really kind of worried me there for a second. So when it was like a minute left, I was like, okay, well, if we can just hold on, and thankfully we did. I mean, the defense kind of locked down in that last minute. They didn't really allow any good shots, and the few shots they did get off got blocked, pretty easily by Damoud. But yeah, fourth quarter ended, game was over. Finally, Panther City back home gets the win, 15-14. As a whole, it was a good game for Panther City. There's still a lot of things that we need to work out, but we knew Vancouver was going to show up. I mean, you cannot say that enough about their offense. Their offense has shown up, except for the game against us, for the most part this entire year, and they're definitely a different team than what we saw a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Panther City kind of underestimated them just looking at their record and then remembering how the first game against them went. I mean, yeah, they got out early, but Vancouver, one of their key issues this year has been putting together a complete game. And this one, their only weak quarter you could say was the first quarter.
Mhm.
The rest they obviously outplayed us in the second, and then in the second half we were neck and neck for the entire time it seemed. So yeah, it's just well, I think we were in some ways pretty lucky to get the win.
Yeah, and I think they'll be a little bit better prepared next time. Vancouver will definitely be a team to look out for the rest of the season because they're a team that really doesn't have a whole lot to play for. They already know that they're looking forward towards next season, and when you have a team like that has nothing to play for but just can spoil it for everybody else, that can be a dangerous team. But for us, for Panther City, It really was good to see Crawford and Fox in the rotation more. Crawford obviously having a crazy good night, getting 5 goals on the night. In fact, his youth lacrosse night, and I found out that his youth lacrosse team that he coaches was in attendance.
Yeah, they're just up the road in Tulsa, I
Yeah,
believe.
yeah. So to have them in attendance, I think he definitely wanted to show off for them. But yeah, things to take away. I would say for sure. We got off to a better start, which is obviously good. I think that's something that we need to, keep going forward with and try to keep that momentum going. But yeah, I definitely got a good idea for the offense, and I'm glad we kind of hung on for the win there.
Yeah. The one silver lining of Caputo being out these past 2 games and Farrell being out as well, you're definitely getting more time for the newer guys to integrate. I know Crawford didn't play last week, but Fox did. And so him getting that extra time, he didn't score much tonight, but you get an idea of what he can do in terms of setting picks. And then when he does get shots on goal, he just rears it back and slings that thing with all he's got towards the goal.
For sure. And you even mentioned too, like with that many pieces out, it did give some other players a little bit more playing time, a little bit more rotation time. So uh, again, whenever the rest of the team is healthy and they're back on the field, it'll be fun to see what our next step is in that offense and defense. Well, of course, as we look past this game, it is of course that time for Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Mr. Andrew, what stats do you have for this homecoming game for Panther City?
Well, you're up because these probably won't sound too positive. But hey, you can learn from everything. So, well, as we know, face-offs have been a big issue all season. I believe last week was the first one where we won over 50% of them. It might have been against San Diego or the game before. However, that was definitely not the case on Saturday. The team went 8 out of 31, so they lost 23 of the 31 faceoffs that they had, and that helped lead to a 14-shot discrepancy, whereas Vancouver had 63 shots on goal compared to our 49. So we were very lucky that Damute had his usual solid net game, because that, face-offs don't necessarily make or break every single game, but in this one, it could have easily determined the outcome to not be in Panther City's favor. So that's something. Tyler Burton's had his struggles in the past, but he probably is desperately needed. We're going to look forward to his return, just having his experience to take those down low. Oh, also, a quick shout out to Ronan Puch. I know it was Ronan's first game of the season. He's one of our rookies, and I believe he took a few face-offs himself, so we threw him right into the fire.
Yeah, called up from the practice squad from that.
Yep. The other thing that you touched on this a little bit. I actually thought, so the team had 10 penalty minutes total, so they basically had 5 minors. Unfortunately, Vancouver took full advantage of those. They went 5 out of 5 on all of the power plays. On the flip side, we also went 2 out of 2, so maybe it was just a very power play friendly defense on both sides out there. But you definitely want to play with more composure, because no one wants to lose a game, much less lose to the bottom team in the division. So just, even though things get testy out there, just don't make those mental mistakes. Keep the sticks where they need to be, and hopefully we can cut those down and limit the amount of power plays that our opponents get.
Yeah, power plays seem to be the difference in the game so far this year, in a lot of different games, but especially in some of ours. And this one was no different, where, like you said, they went 5 for 5. And maybe if we didn't have all 5 penalties, maybe 2 or 3, then we could have, pulled away sooner than we would have in the end. Well, of course, thank you again. That was Mr. Andrews' stats of the game. Well, we look forward, or we look to this game with a lot of highlights, but of course, we can only pick out a few highlights. And this is, of course, our Cool Cat plays of the game. I think I know which direction you're going to go. So I'm going to go a little bit to the opposite and say, for me, the cool cat play of the game was probably the one in the first quarter. Uh, the transition goal for Crawford from Medeiros, like it, it it just it got the fans going even more so, and it really kind of topped off a really good first quarter from us. Even though it did slow down in the middle of there, it really got everybody hyped up to be there for the home game, and it got everybody hyped up to be ahead, 4-1. And of course, it was, good to see Crawford again, just fitting in very easily with this offense. So for me, cool cat play of the game. Uh, in the first quarter, Crawford goal. I I send it to you because I figure I know which one you're going to talk about.
Actually, you know what? I believe it or not, I thought you were going to go for the one you probably thought I was going to go for.
Oh, there you
But
go.
before I get to that, I did want to highlight two almost great plays because it just really shows you how like in box lacrosse, even the plays that kind of get broken up or don't lead to a goal are pretty amazing. There was one play, I think it was in the third quarter. Nick Damude had
Hmm.
an amazing outlet pass all the way to the other side of the I think it was kind of close to our bench actually.
Yeah, it was
And he
like it was
just
like 3/4 of the field.
yeah, and he hit that thing with such accuracy that you were like, man, we have to get something out of this.
Right.
Unfortunately, we didn't, but it's good to know that we have a goalie that can just basically make full court outlet passes without any problem. And then there was one play where I think Crawford was in a bit of trouble, and so what he actually did, he moved his stick behind the back, and the net on the stick or the head was kind of almost just hovering above the playing field, and eventually the ball did slip out. But I was like, man, if he somehow was able to whether it was going to go into a pass or a shot, if he was able to pull that off, it'd be amazing. Again, it's like, oh, I absolutely understand why they call him Showtime. Well,
Right.
yeah. All that being said, so my cool cat plays of the game. It was hard for me to choose. I would I'll kind of bookend it with one in the first quarter, one in the last. I got to bring up, you brought up Crawford's transition goal off of Medeiros' assist. I'm actually going to bring up Medeiros' first goal of the game. 26 seconds in, he was basically able to elude the defense, stuck the stick with the ball right out in front of him, and was just like cradling like crazy to keep it in the stick. And then just it's been a long time since we've scored a goal barely 30 seconds into the game. And so just to have that with this being the first home game in almost 2 months and everything, I thought that was really key. And then you brought it up earlier, a lot of foreshadowing. Donville's assist off of an offensive rebound to Crawford, who was basically posting up in front of the goalie, and then spun off his shoulder and got the easy goal right there. That was a really fun play that got everyone riled up.
For sure. I mean, yeah, there were so many good plays during this game, and again, us getting the win even made it that much better.
Yeah.
Well, those are, of course, our cool cat plays of the game. Now it is time, of course, for our big cat player of the game. Um, he was the man of the night, and I have to tip my cap to the man who I almost wanted to throw socks at, Callum Crawford. Yeah. Again, a 5-goal night on a pretty full house. His youth team there, they coaches, everybody, wanting to see how he can do in his first home game. He did not disappoint. I mean, you can't say anything bad about how he played and how he was able to fit into the offense so easily during this home game. And so I hope it's all things to come. I hope he can continue to fit as easily into this offense and continue to push the offense towards towards better things. I mean, it's an offense that I want to keep an eye on as the year goes on for sure. So Crawford, yes, tip of the hat to you, of course. But you are, of course, my big cat player of the game. What about for you?
Well, Crawford is one of my honorable mentions. I did have a few of those. Crawford with the 5 goals. Jonathan Donville, honorable mention. He had 8 points total, another solid game overall on offense. Brooker Muir, he did have a minor penalty, but other than that, he played solid defense. He caused 4 turnovers by Vancouver, so I thought he did another solid job kind of spelling the injured guys. My player of the game is actually Josh Medeiros, giving some love to the transition players. Medeiros took 4 shots on goal the entire game and converted 3 of them. Not only that, he didn't have a single negative statistic. He didn't have any penalties. He didn't turn the ball over at all, and he collected 9 loose balls. So top that off with those 3 goals and then the assist to Crawford that you alluded to. Yeah, I had to give him a shout out this time.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just goes to show you that there was some highlight players for this game. So, well, those of course are our big cat players of the game. Final thoughts on this game, kind of going forward as we leave Vancouver, or well, leave playing Vancouver, I should say.
Well, both our predictions were pretty off. I think we predicted 7 goal victories, but hey, a win's a win. I do think we're a bit lucky to have won, but also when you consider how many of the regular rotation guys that we had out, we played pretty well, especially integrating Fox and Crawford in there. Looking forward to getting Caputo back. Thank goodness that Damude's still in there doing his thing. Yeah, and then again, not to beat a dead horse, but Medeiros going in there, showing us what this was the first game where we really did a whole lot on transition, not just Medeiros, but the Crawford goal, and I think 1 or 2 of the others in there. So if we put that all together, I think we should have a pretty strong second half of this season.
For sure. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Yes, our predictions were off. I do think we were lucky to get away with a win, especially by that last 3 minutes of the game where they're scoring goals and making it close. But I would say Panther City is at the point now where they're winning. They're staying competitive and winning the games that they need to be winning, and
Yes.
that's a really good sign for us. Well, we move on from Vancouver, kind of leave them behind us, coming out with that win, and look ahead to kind of a very important game this coming weekend against Colorado. I mean, Colorado are the defending champs. Obviously can't take that away from them, but uh, they're not really kind of looking like themselves this year. They're coming off of 2 straight losses, one against Las Vegas in Las Vegas, and then another one off of Calgary this last weekend. And I say they're not really looking like themselves. I mean, they haven't really scored many points. They've only scored 9 in the last 2. So they're offensive down, and they're just kind of having struggles. I mean, I don't know. Have you seen anything from Colorado's end from your side?
Well, I know they're sitting at 500 right now, which theoretically it's just 1 game worse than us. But if you look at the goal differential, they've scored 77 but given up 94. And so that's not something that's really going to get you into the playoffs even as a 4 seed.
Right, and they are missing some pieces. We learned this week that Capito, one of their main forwards, has to have surgery. He's going to be out for the year. So they just actually traded with the Riptide just today for they traded away a future draft pick for Mike Burke, a forward, hopefully to fill in that hole. And then I do believe actually that Ward, their goalie, has been out a few games this year. I don't know. I just feel like he hasn't been playing as much, and I don't know if he's been injured or what the deal is with that.
Yeah, I think last game, I'm not too sure whether he was hurt there or whether their coach kind of did the same thing Coach TK did with Damu during the Rochester game where he didn't like what he was seeing early on.
Well, and with Ward being out, I mean he was a key piece in their championship run last year. It kind of puts a lot of pressure on that defense, and like you said, they're having a hard time keeping up with the goals scored from the other teams. So I think they're coming into Fort Worth wanting to, you know, get back on the winning side of things, get back to trying to make a push for the playoffs again this year. Obviously, if you win a title, you definitely want to try to defend it at least in the playoffs the next year. But they have a little bit of a hill to be able to do that again. Obviously, with us ahead of them right now, and then from Panther City's point of view, I mean, if we get a win, that would put us ahead of Saskatchewan, even though they don't have as many games as us, and their record is technically percentage wise better than ours. A win will definitely change that, and even put us further into playoff contention for this year.
Yeah, yeah. We've alluded to it in past episodes. San Diego, unless they completely implode, they're going to be pretty hard to catch. And Calgary's really picking up things too. So this little three-team bunch up with Saskatchewan, Colorado, and Panther City is really where Panther City can hopefully make some noise to move up to the 3 spot, and then who knows, maybe even catch Calgary.
Right. And I highly doubt we're going to go on a run like we did last year. I mean, we could, but I doubt that'll happen. But, it's almost something like that, like you said, where if we went on a run like that, plus if San Diego was to kind of fall apart, then we would have a good shot at that first seed. But for right now, we're focused at one game at a time and kind of trying to stay in that top four, but it's very bunched up right now. Um, I know Colorado. I've seen their home games, especially this year and last year. I mean, they don't call it the Loud House for nothing. It's packed every game. They have a very passionate fan base. We even talked about when they came down here back in December. They have some fans that travel really well with that team. So I think they definitely want to put the last few games behind them and get back on their track back to the playoffs. I mean, what are your kind of expectations for this game for Panther City as we go against, Colorado?
Well, based on the telecast of the last game, supposedly Phil Caputo will be back next week, so that'll be a big help. Just having him scoring goals, setting picks, opening up guys like Donville and Dodds to make some noise themselves. I think we're gonna do pretty good. I know Colorado's dealt with the injury bug this year, which is unfortunate. It's happened to us a few games as well. Of course, you just got to play the people who are in front of you. So hopefully they can do that. I know historically speaking, we play Colorado pretty well because even in the first season last year, I don't remember whether we won one of the 3 games against them or 2 of them. I
I
keep thinking
believe
2.
I believe we went 2-1, yeah, against them. Even though they won the championship, yeah, we actually beat them in the regular season series.
Yeah, yeah. So we have that in the sense that we're not going to be intimidated by them being a defending champ. In fact, we'll probably use that as motivation. I'm sure Coach TK is probably telling the guys, "Hey, don't let up. They've got title winning experience, and quite frankly, this is where we're trying to get as a franchise."
Yeah, and I hope that's something I hope Coach can use even this game against Vancouver as motivation. Like we kind of, like you said, we kind of overestimate him maybe or underestimate him a little bit, and Vancouver was able to hang in there a lot longer than we wanted to. So now you can take that and say, hey, we shouldn't, even though Colorado's having these issues, we shouldn't take it for granted. We should keep on pushing forward and try to, play our best game.
Absolutely. Correct the mistakes from this past Saturday, even though we did come out with a win, and also correct the mistakes from the first time we played Colorado, where we just were flat early on and just dug ourselves into a hole we couldn't get out of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, yeah, I do believe that our defense played better, especially in the first quarter, and then we tightened down again in the third quarter. I'm still waiting defensively for that complete game where all four
Hmm.
quarters. I mean, again, we can talk about that game in Las Vegas that we had that was very early on in the season, but a consistent, you know, a consistency from the defense for all four quarters, I think, is probably the only way we're gonna have a really good game against Colorado and some of the other teams as we look forward to the second half of the year.
Yeah, and it did kind of help out against Vancouver that a lot of the mistakes we had were glaring, like the loose ball discrepancy, the shot on goal discrepancy. Oh, sorry, not the loose ball, the face off discrepancy.
Yeah.
And it's like if you're able to shore up face offs, then shots on goal will kind of take care of itself, at least initially. And then from there, it's just hustle, making sure you want it more, getting the loose balls, grabbing the offensive rebounds, and just not making mistakes, even with simple passes, rotating the ball around the net.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and so I mean, we look at this game. I mean, the Mammoth are coming in trying to right their ship and get back on the winning track, and then obviously us wanting to keep our winning track going, especially being at home. For looking at this game this coming weekend, win or loss, I'm actually I feel like it's going to be another close game, and it's not we weren't expecting a close game against Vancouver, and maybe I'll get the opposite effect here where we'll actually have a really good game this weekend and blow them out of the water. But no, I do expect a close game. I mean, even when we went against them back in December, it was a close game. A lot of our mistakes ended up leading to our loss. But I can definitely see another game where it's a little bit low scoring, and then we can try to make some goals in the second half. I would say a win for Panther City. My guess would be, I don't know, it keeps creeping in my head, so I'm going to go with 13-11. That would be my guess. A Panther City win, 13-11. What about for you?
I think Nick Damude and the defense are gonna come out ready to play. I expect them to hold Colorado under 10 points. That might be a little optimistic, but that's what I'm hoping for. Meanwhile, our offense will click well now that Crawford and Fox are better integrated. Caputo returning; those guys are going to feel more comfortable. Medeiros, who knows? He might have opened up a whole other dimension of the offense in the transition game. So I'm thinking it'll be a hard-fought win, close throughout, but we pull away for a 12-9 victory.
So you're going to keep Colorado at that 9 point
Yes.
9 point limit. They don't
Yeah.
break the double digits for 3 games in a row. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
that could very well happen, especially with, like you said, all their problems that they're having on the offensive side. Well, I really do hope for a good game, a fun game. Just a reminder that this weekend's game against Colorado is Origins of Lacrosse Night. I do encourage anybody who's going to this game, if you can get there early, please do so. They have some great pregame stuff. Last year, like I had mentioned before, they actually had a pregame where they had like a game of lacrosse the way it was originally played. How it was originated from. So that was really cool to see. And then they had a whole halftime talking about the origins of lacrosse and kind of what it means, to have this sport in the North America. So again, please, if you can get out there for pre-show, go for it, and definitely stick around for halftime if they're doing something similar to what they did last year. Also, speaking of this weekend, I actually have some friends coming into town from Colorado. It is very ironic that they come in on the game that we're going against Colorado. They don't follow lacrosse as much, but I'm sure they'll probably root for Colorado while I try to go for Panther City. So I can hold that against them if we can get a win there at least.
Oh, that'll be fun if we're all sitting together because we haven't had a whole lot of games where you see a ton of road fans. I know Colorado's pretty well known for it. Georgia had quite a few when I saw them last year. So yeah, that should make for a fun dynamic.
Oh yeah, for sure. So hopefully, like I said, it'll be a good fun game, and again, glad to have Panther City back home at least for a few games before we have to go for another road game in a few weeks. So.
Right.
Well, it was good to have the guys back home, and topping it off with a win made it a lot better for the fans and the team. We're definitely looking forward to a pivotal showdown this coming weekend against the defending champion Colorado Mammoth. Of course, we thank you all for listening. This is once again the Cowtown Cats Lacrosse Podcast. I am Nicholas.
And I am Andy.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks. Cheers, y'all.
Hey!